Yo, what's good everyone? Welcome to the Fantasy Football Prodigy channel, and in this video we are going to go over my top starts of the week for week 7 of the 2023 fantasy football season. Please make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel, and let's get right into it. We're going to start with the quarterback position, and I don't like to make too obvious of starts of the week calls. I try to give you guys that are a little bit more helpful, or guys that I think can really exceed their expectations. Tua of the Miami Dolphins is one of my starts of the week though. He is probably someone that you are starting regardless of whatever I tell you in this video. But I just want to point out that this game where between the Miami Dolphins and the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday night is very exciting. I want pieces of this game, and Tua is a high quarterback one in this game. The matchup isn't as scary as it has been in the years past. And unless you have one of these guys that's like a top end, like auto start, like Mahomes type of guy, I would be putting Tua in the lineup pretty much no matter what. Next up at QB, we have Geno Smith of the Seattle Seahawks. It hasn't been a completely great year for Geno. He's had his highs, he's had his lows, but in week 7, this is all about the matchup. He is taking on the Arizona Cardinals at home. I do think that the running game could dominate in this matchup, but I think there will be enough offense to go around where Geno should be a safe play at the very least, and if the scoring goes through the passing game, he will be a very solid quarterback one play. So this is a great matchup against the Arizona Cardinals. I think he can pick this defense apart. They're not going to be able to get pressure on him, and I think he will be able to get the ball to his weapons, and the Seahawks are going to put up quite a few points, and I think the Cardinals can actually do some scoring as well, where this might be a little bit of a higher scoring game than you might expect. So Geno Smith is a solid quarterback one start this week. Next up, we have Brock Purdy of the San Francisco 49ers as my next quarterback start of the week. This guy has done nothing but be consistent, be a winner, and just ball out on the NFL field. He often doesn't get the respect he deserves, but he has had a very solid season for fantasy, and that has all been true up until week 6 last week on the road in Cleveland against the Browns, where they actually lost the game against the backup quarterback in PJ Walker, and Brock Purdy did not have himself a very good game at all. Single-digit fantasy points, not what you expect, but I don't want to get too into it. I want to keep this video a little quick, but there were reasons to expect that might have been a bit of a challenge for the 49ers on the road against that Cleveland Browns defense. But in week 7, they're taking on my Minnesota Vikings in a primetime game on Monday night, and this is a great bounce back spot for Brock Purdy. I've seen every Vikings game this year, and their defense has been struggling over the last few years. They have some talented pieces, but definitely a matchup that can be exposed. And I think this is a great bounce back spot for the 49ers. I'm calling for a Vikings win, though. We're going to win that game on Monday night in primetime, get back in the playoff push. But Brock Purdy, I think, is going to be a solid start in week 7. And then my final quarterback start of the week is Jordan Love of the Green Bay Packers. He started off pretty hot for fantasy. He's been cooling off a little bit lately. Really bad game in week 5 against the Las Vegas Raiders, where he had single-digit points. Just really a disappointing game. Coming off the bye week, he's taking on the Denver Broncos, and I think you just want to play people against the Denver Broncos. Jordan Love is not an auto start by any means, but this just all comes down to the matchup and the fact that we have seen him perform for fantasy this year at certain points. As you will see later in this video, there are pieces on this Green Bay Packers offense that I want, and I think Jordan Love is going to be a part of getting the ball to those players, which will in turn obviously give him fantasy points. So unless you have a locked-in true every week starter, Jordan Love is someone that you could consider throwing in there, and he might have himself a nice week in a great matchup against the Denver Broncos. Moving on to the running back position, I'm going to talk about Kenneth Walker of the Seattle Seahawks just for a quick second. He's an auto start, someone you're probably starting no matter what, but I just want to bring up his name because this is a week where it would not surprise me if he is the #1 overall running back on the week. He has been nothing short of phenomenal for fantasy this season, and I wouldn't be shocked if he has his best game. Maybe he won't have a 29.1 point game like he did in week 3 against the Panthers, but in week 7 he is set up to absolutely smash. I think the Seattle Seahawks are going to be able to score against the Arizona Cardinals. I highlighted Geno. If the production and the touchdowns go through the running game, that's going to be Kenneth Walker. That's where he has been amazing this season. He scored in every game other than week 1, 2, 2, 1, and 1 rushing touchdowns on the ground. In addition to that great matchup and what I think will be a high-scoring offense, rookie running back Zach Charbonnet for the Seattle Seahawks, he's dealing with a bit of a hamstring injury. Not sure if he's going to suit up. He's questionable as of this recording. But I also want to bring up Kenneth Walker because this is someone that you could also put in your daily fantasy lineups on DraftKings or whatever. because I would not be surprised if the winning lineup in all these big tournaments has Kenneth Walker. He has a really special opportunity to go off this week, so I just wanted to highlight him quick. Now we're going to go with someone who isn't necessarily viewed as an auto start, but in week 7, maybe he should be. DeAndre Swift of the Philadelphia Eagles. Coming into the draft season, I really did not like taking DeAndre Swift at his ADP. I thought he was going to be a bust. I didn't know why he was going so high. After week 1, he's been nothing short of amazing. His fantasy finishes in half PPR. So he was not involved in week 1. I don't even know if I don't remember his snap percentage or anything. But in week 2 on, he's been the running back 2, 13, 11, 11, and 13 in half PPR. Now he's taking on the Miami Dolphins. He can get it done on the ground. He can get it done through the air. Last week, he was only 10 for 18 on the ground, but he had 10 targets, caught 8 of them for 40 yards and a touchdown. Finished with 13.8 fantasy points, running back 13 on the week, a borderline running back 1. And like I said, I want pieces of this game, so I think this is going to be a high-scoring game, big offensive affair, a lot of back-and-forth scoring, and DeAndre Swift is going to be the workhorse running back for the Eagles. So fire him up as a running back 1 in week 7 against the Miami Dolphins. Next up, we have Isiah Pacheco of the Kansas City Chiefs. I want to bring him up for a couple reasons. One, this matchup doesn't truly scare me against the LA Chargers. I don't necessarily know if this game will be super high scoring, like you might expect in years past between the Chiefs and the Chargers. The Chiefs defense has been playing pretty well, and they might not need to put up a ton of points. But either way, I think Pacheco is a very solid low running back 1, high running back 2 play in week 7 against the Chargers. And the matchup doesn't scare me at all. But in addition to that, he's just been great for fantasy, and he's someone that we need to start really paying attention to. He's clearly taking over as the lead back and getting a ton of volume in this offense. Weeks 1 and 2, he was the running back 34 and 25, only 8 and 12 carries. But since then, he's been the running back 11, 7, 13, and 14 in half PPR, 15, 20, 16, and 16 carries. And he's even being used in the passing game now. 2, 3, 1, 6 receptions on 3, 3, 1, and 6 targets over the last 4 weeks. You love to see that. So fire up Isiah Pacheco. I think it'd be very hard to sit him this week against the Chargers. And then finally, I'm going to talk about Aaron Jones of the Green Bay Packers. Again, they're playing the Denver Broncos. It's a great matchup. The Broncos love giving up big plays, and Aaron Jones is a guy who can rip off a big run or reception at any time. Now, he's been dealing with a hamstring injury, I believe it was. Hamstring injury. Coming off the bye, he's currently questionable as of this recording, so you have to monitor the news. I cannot adjust this video after I post it. So I'm posting this Friday night. I'm recording this about 10 p.m. Central Time on Friday night, October 20th. If reports come out that he's going to be limited or not play, obviously he's not a start of the week. But if he gets even a fair amount of volume, he just needs a couple big plays in this game to be someone that you could be starting. So if he's full and good to go, he's a high running back 2, borderline running back 1 play in this great matchup against the Broncos. But monitor the news, see what the deal is with the injury. Depending on who you have on your team, you might want to, avoid the risk and go with someone else. But I'm just saying, if he's out on the field in this matchup, he could be someone that goes off. He's not on our minds. We haven't thought about him lately, but he has a lot of potential in this matchup. So just someone to monitor going into week 7. We're moving on to the wide receiver position. I'm going to go with Marquise Hollywood Brown of the Arizona Cardinals. He's actually had a very solid season for fantasy, a pretty nice draft day steal, even with Josh Dobbs at quarterback and no Kyler Murray yet. He's been very solid for fantasy. And in week 7, I like the matchup against the Seattle Seahawks. I think that this matchup can be exploited through the air. And I do think the Seattle Seahawks are going to score in this game. And the Cardinals are going to have to air it out a little bit, put the ball in the air, try to put up points. So I like Marquise Hollywood Brown as a nice wide receiver 2 play in week 7 against the Seattle Seahawks. Next up, I'm going to go with Christian Watson of the Green Bay Packers. Again, I'm just targeting this Denver Broncos matchup. He didn't play until week 4 this year, went 2 for 25 and a touchdown. Next week, he went 3 for 91, 1 rushing attempt for -5 yards, saw 7 targets in that game. Coming off the bye week, I think this might be the time where we see Christian Watson kind of come onto the scene this season. We know he has that big play ability, and the Denver Broncos give up big plays. So this is just a guy where it's like you might not necessarily think of him as someone who can win you a week, but we saw it last year, and we could see it in week 7. He just needs a little bit of space to take off and rip off a big play. So I like him as a kind of low wide receiver 2, maybe a flex option, but he has a ton of upside in this matchup. And unless you have really, really solid options, to play over him, you might regret not having him in your lineup if he goes off for a big play or two. Next up, we have Jakobi Meyers of the Las Vegas Raiders. This guy's just been balling out for fantasy. I'm not sure why the Patriots let him go. They could really use him right now, but he has been nothing short of great for the Raiders. He is going to eat in this matchup. That's just what I think. Even without Jimmy Garoppolo, I think Brian Hoyer is a starter right now. I don't really care. I think he can get him the ball. Every week this season, I'll just go over his finishes. Week 1, he was the wide receiver 3 in half PPR. Missed week 2, wide receiver 31, but had 12 points in half PPR. Not bad. And then wide receiver 69, wide receiver 10, wide receiver 13, 17 and 14.6 in half PPR the last couple weeks. And in week 7, this just comes down to the matchup. He's been solid for fantasy, and he's taking on the Chicago Bears, a matchup that we all know is juicy. So don't overthink it. I like him as a wide receiver 2 this week. A nice safe play. Someone that you're probably starting no matter what, unless you have like an absolutely stacked roster, or if you're in like a guillotine league or something and you picked up some crazy players. But Jakobi Meyers, at this point, he's someone that you should be putting in your lineup most weeks, and especially in week 7 against the Bears, you got to put him out there. Next up, I'm going to go with Brandon Aiyuk of the San Francisco 49ers. Deebo Samuel is a little banged up, but I do think the 49ers will be able to put up points in this game against my Minnesota Vikings. Coming off a kind of rough loss, I think they're going to want to put up points. And Brandon Aiyuk, I think, is a solid bet to have fantasy production in this game. It's been up and down all year, but especially with Deebo Samuel a little banged up, wouldn't be surprised to see the offense kind of go more Aiyuk's way. In week 1, he came out 8 for 129 and 2 touchdowns, 28.9 points at half PPR, was a wide receiver 2. Since then, in half PPR, he's been wide receiver 64, missed week 3, wide receiver 8, but then wide receiver 36 and 33. The targets are still there, though. 8, 6, 6, 7, and 10 targets. 7 and 10 targets the last couple weeks. You don't want to go away from that. Only 4 receptions each of those games, but wide receivers are going to have their ups and downs. He played the Dallas Cowboys and the Cleveland Browns the last couple weeks. Don't go away from him just because he's had a couple not amazing weeks. This is a great spot for him to bounce back. It would not shock me at all if he's a wide receiver 1 this week. I'm viewing him as a low wide receiver 1, especially with Deebo being a little injured. And when you just consider the matchup and the bounce back opportunity, Aiyuk is someone that I am not benching unless I just have an absolutely insane roster. So put him out there. We're moving on to tight end, where I'm going to start with Dallas Goedert of the Philadelphia Eagles. Again, I want pieces of this Eagles and Miami Dolphins matchup. So like, obviously, I'm not saying, oh, start AJ Brown, start Tyreek Hill. Those guys are auto starts. You're going to start them no matter what. Okay. So just because I'm not talking about them doesn't mean like, oh, put Dallas Goedert in the flex over Tyreek Hill. Not saying that at all. Okay. I want to talk about Dallas Goedert though, because he's someone started the year slow, was probably dropped in some of your leagues out there. The last couple weeks, though, have been pretty solid for fantasy. 8 receptions on 9 targets for 117 and a touchdown, 21.7 points, and the tight end 2 in half PPR in week 5. And then last week in week 6, saw 8 targets, turned into 5 for 42, 6.7 points, and the tight end 16. Not anything elite, but you love to see those 8 targets. He's had his 2 season high in targets the last couple of weeks. Now in week 7, should be a high-scoring matchup. Or a high-scoring game, and it's a great matchup for tight ends. The Dolphins do give up points to that position, and when you consider the potential for the high scoring total, the potential for offense in general, and the matchup, and Dallas Goedert, kind of turning it on a little bit lately, I'm playing him as a locked-in tight end 1 this week. Unless you have, an Andrews, a Kelsey, maybe like a Laporta, I am probably considering Dallas Goedert an auto start unless you have a guy like that. And if there's any Broncos fans out there, I really apologize for this video, but I'm going to make Luke Musgrave, tight end of the Green Bay Packers, a start of the week at tight end against the Denver Broncos. I've said it a million times in this video. Great matchup. The Broncos defense is terrible. They give up big plays. I think the Packers are going to score. We're going to see Jordan Love have a good game. And they also give up a lot of points to tight ends. So, Luke Musgrave is not a must-start option, not a household name. But he has flashed at times this year, and at the tight end position, it's very gross. So I don't make these videos to tell you to start Travis Kelce. I'm trying to kind of give you someone that maybe you can pick up off the waiver wire or get on the low. So Luke Musgrave, if you're really desperate at the position, he actually probably ranks as a low tight end 1, high tight end 2 this week, and he could definitely have his best game of the season in this great matchup. So if you're desperate at the tight end position, Luke Musgrave is a great option at a disgusting tight end position. And then next up, I'm going to go with rookie tight end Michael Mayer of the Las Vegas Raiders. had a slow start to the year, but we've seen his involvement go up the last couple of weeks. 2 receptions on 3 targets for 39 yards a couple weeks ago. And then last week, saw 6 targets, more than he saw combined all year, turned into 5 for 75 through the air. 10 points, which was actually the tight end 5 on the week and half PPR. Now in week 7, he's taking on the Chicago Bears. This is not a guy that you should be forcing into your lineups if you have a reliable option, which you probably don't because it's the tight end position. But this is just, I'm just highlighting him because he's kind of turning things up a little bit. He's a rookie, getting more involved, and this is a great matchup against the Chicago Bears. Again, their defense doesn't scare me in any way, shape, or form. So we could definitely see production go to him. Wouldn't surprise me at all if he doesn't have a good game because tight end is really hard to predict. But just someone to monitor. And even if you're not playing him this week in week 7 against the Bears, if you have room on your roster, or if you have if someone gets put on IR and you can put him in that slot right before game time, go ahead and pick up Michael Meyers, see what happens. And you might just have a valuable asset at the tight end position on your team. So I like Michael Mayer this week as a very kind of like a desperate streaming option. Still a tight end too, but wouldn't shock me if he comes through and has a solid week. And that's going to do it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Please make sure to drop a like, subscribe to the channel. I will talk to you all later. Good luck in week 7. Peace out.